to Summoner's Rift. Seconds until minions spawn. Minions have spawned. Has been slain. Your turret has been destroyed.
Boring.
After a full day of mulling over this incredibly baffling hand that happened on the Hustler stream, I've decided that I think that it is overwhelmingly likely that she is cheating, although it's obviously not known for sure. I think it's something like 90% that she is cheating, and today in this video, I'm going to break down the leading theory as to exactly what's happening.
That is super, super strange. You can see his reaction. He seems somewhat disturbed here. It's like he's seen a ghost, almost.
I don't feel like I should have won that hand. I should not have won that hand. And if everyone wants to flip out about it, good for fucking you. I don't give a shit.
She's actually dating the player named Rip on the show. I have an inside source that has told me they've seen them, and also that he is backing her in a lot of these games.
Allegedly thinking this lady's cheating. She gives him the money back she won. This guy, the cowboy guy, is freaking out. Something is really weird here, guys. I've never seen anything like this. Something is not what it seems.
Before we do, though, a couple quick notes. First off, much better. Second off, I've seen the overwhelming number of threads online about what happened, and typically they all think that she's innocent and that Garrett's being a sore loser. But I do want to make one quick point. Most people are idiots. Sorry about that, guys, but at least no one thinks I'm talking about them. Now, some degree of pros have also weighed in thinking she's innocent, and there's certainly a discussion to be had here. It's far from concrete fact one way or the other, and we do have people on both sides that really think one way or the other. However, this issue has drawn in a lot of people that frankly aren't really a part of poker at all, and they're just saying all kinds of wild shit and upvoting each other and saying, yeah, that's right. The reality is that the average person weighing in with their opinion on this story has almost no knowledge of poker other than basic poker stuff. The actual experts are being sort of drowned out with just the overwhelming masses of people that think poker hand, girl won, oh, guy is being a sore loser, rather than thinking about this critically with actual knowledge of the way poker works. That's not to say she's guilty. There's definitely still a small room for error here. However, we have to look at the evidence that we have and use critical thinking about what happened here. So today I am going to put up what I believe to be the leading theory as to exactly what happened and why I personally think that she might be cheating here. Put enough caveats in there because, you know, legal stuff. A lot of you guys have very strong feelings about this, so I'd like you to just put those to the side and join me as we talk about a potential theory. Then afterwards, we're going to give the case for and the case against, and you guys, of course, as always, can weigh in the comments with what you think happened as well. The theory is this. While she's playing, someone has access to the cards. Either someone in the back studio has access to them and is forwarding them to someone, or someone has figured out a way to hack into the RFID system at the table and is transmitting to some other location. However we want to dice this up, somebody has access to the cards. Then, when Robbie gets into a hand, she has to take a little bit of time and think things over when it's her decision, and that's why she plays slow. During that time, somebody transmits to her a signal that she either is good or not good. It could be in a variety of ways. There is certainly a vibration theory that we're going to take a look at as well. There could be signaling. There could be any kind of thing that lets her know that her hand is good or not good, and then she can proceed accordingly. This would allow her to play fairly accurately in big pot situations. She would be able to know if her hand is good or not good, and then kind of craft her plan based on that information. This would be a very different kind of live stream cheating if it is the case when compared to something like the Mike Postle cheating. With the Mike Postle story, he knew what his opponents had specifically. So not only he knew when he was good, he also knew when to apply the pressure. And there are a bunch of hands where he runs crazy bluffs against people that have really shitty hands. In fact, there's one hand where the guy ended up calling down anyway, just thinking that Postle was full of it. Why is this the leading theory? Well, let's talk about all of the ways where she's cheating first. In those examples, what she would be doing. So for starters, we have things like marking cards. It doesn't really make sense to be marking cards in this instance. You could have certain kinds of lenses that can see marked cards. The reason that doesn't make sense is you're not typically going to be able to mark cards so well, you know, the exact type of card. So a hero call of this magnitude wouldn't really be possible. Typically, people mark cards. They just know what the aces are, or maybe what like the kings or queens or tens are, so they know in situations what's possible. But typically speaking, that's not going to allow for super sick, crazy hero calls where you know someone has 8 high when you have jack high. So I'd rule that one out. I would also say that the kind of cheating where she's looking at a device and knows someone's hand is also very unlikely. I think the exact accuracy of the types of decisions that she's making aren't nearly as flawless as, for example, how Postle played in a lot of his big pots. And then additionally, looking at her, don't exactly know where the screen would go. There's also a theory that maybe someone could see Garrett's cards when he looks at them. I strongly doubt that. I know that he is in the 9 seat, and that typically has maybe the most chance of something going on because the dealer's in between and you don't exactly know what sight lines are like. However, Garrett is a professional player. He's played for many years. There's no way he has a leak in his game as simple as the 1 or 2 seat can see his cards. Those might be things she's not doing, but let's talk about things that she is doing as we make the case that Robbie is cheating. Note, these are opinions. Please don't sue me. I know it might seem like I'm being extra nitty about my language here, but Robbie's husband tweeted out that she called Robbie like a book. She's done it to me plenty of times at home. Oh, and as far as the legal consequences, all I can say is to buckle up. So Oh shit, this chair doesn't have a fucking seatbelt. Anyway, let's start off big picture. What are things that would happen if someone was cheating in a poker game? Well, for starters, they would win money. And every session Robbie has played here, she in fact has won money, although one was a very small win. She has played 3 sessions and she's won in all 3, with wins totaling something around 240,000 or so. This figure also includes having paid back 35,000 that she won in a hand versus Garrett. So she has been absolutely killing these games, but it is a very small sample. Okay, so she's winning. How has she played in the big pots? And the answer is she has played extremely well. And we're going to look at a few different hands that were either weird or had weird things going on, or she made incredibly sharp plays to look at some specifics here, besides just the Jack 4 hand itself. Here, Robbie gets the river with a missed flush draw against a boat that Garrett had. He bets the river and she starts to talk a bit, and the angle changes to a side angle where we can see her quite clearly. In this clip, she talks a bit, and then notice what happens to her chair and abdomen for something like 5 seconds. A very clear vibrating starts in her body and chair. Extremely clear. She is shaking, the chair is shaking. The moment the vibrating stops, she says, "You can have this one."
I don't know what she's really thinking about here.
You can have this one.
What could be causing something like that? Maybe a vent, or maybe she's tapping her foot and we're not seeing her leg move. Certainly possible that this is just a one-off, and I didn't see any other great angles of vibrations happening. However, certainly something kind of weird that we should at least note. Also, isn't this kind of a weird tank? We're in a huge pot. She called a turn bet. She's facing an over bet. She has a bricked flush draw for Jack high on a board where she barely can even beat any of the bluffs. And she tanks for what, 30, 40, 45 seconds here and uses a time chip? She uses a time chip to tank. What is she waiting for? This does not make much sense to me. Typically speaking, when players have a hand this bad, they just fold. They might posture a little bit to make it not seem like they had really nothing, but she is actually spending something of value, a time chip. You have to act quickly on these shows. Spending a time chip to wait to make a decision. Why would you do that with a hand this bad? That's also a bit of a red flag to me as to what's going on here. There was another pretty strange hand that she played against Eric Pearson where she called it 3-bet with ace-king, and then post-flop correctly floated the flop with ace-king high, and then decided to put in a weird just over min turn raise when Eric bet the turn, and she had a better ace high. The reason this hand is at least a little bit weird is when you have ace-king in this situation, typically speaking, your hand more prefers to call because your opponent is either bluffing or they have a very strong overpair. So when you have ace-king, you're actually not in that bad a shape. I will say that because she has a club and a diamond, it maybe makes a little more sense to raise because you block more of the continue range when you do decide to raise. However, you also do block more of the bluffs. I'm not sure what the solver nerds would tell us in terms of if this was good or not. But the reason that it's weird to me is this is a very non-intuitive size to use. She basically raises 40-ish% of her entire stack here with a min raise. What do you do in this spot versus a jam? It's very unclear, and that is a trend that we've seen in now 2 of the big hands she's played. Of course, talking about the Jack 4 hand as well. The raise small when you're good, that would be not something most players would do. And then if your opponent re-raises, what do you do from there? So this hand looks very similar to me in the fashion that it was played to the Jack 4 hand, and it is not something that you see from players very often at all. This one is not crazy enough to where I would say that I think that it's cheating or something like that in its own right. But it also shows us another big pot where she's making a very sharp decision facing a turn bet. Next hand I want to look at, I want to key on a couple of smaller points in the Jack 4 hand that didn't really get discussed much before. For starters, when she min raises Garrett on the turn, she also says to him something like, "I'm scratching my face because that's the shit I got," which by the way makes no sense, but frankly a lot of what she says makes no sense, so I don't think that's too out of the realm of normalcy.
Oh, wait, hold on, let me scratch my face. That's the shit I got.
There's a classic tell in poker for people that are maybe new to the game, or maybe you've not heard of this before, but typically speaking, when we play a game of information, humans are more inclined to do the opposite thing than what they really have. So for example, it's a classic weak means strong, strong means weak. So when you have really good hands, people tend to not act really strong and big because they want to seem quiet and weak, and maybe you should put money in. Then when they have weak hands, they tend to act much stronger and puff their chest out and throw more chips in aggressively and all that kind of stuff. So from the way that we're looking at it where she is talking in the hand, that does seem strong, but she's saying that her hand is weak when her hand is weak, which is quite rare in live poker to see someone do that. But then also to be engaged in this kind of conversation where you're trying to bait someone to do a thing that would essentially, that kind of baiting language is to try and get someone to jam, right? I'm weak. I'm really weak. What are you going to do about it? Trying to get someone to put more money in. But she's doing it with Jack 4 on this board, and she's doing it in a spot where her hand is terrible and would have to fold to a jam. Except she doesn't. She calls. Once Garrett jams, now she starts to think about it. And note a couple of small things here. She thinks about it and she puts a time chip in, waiting the exact same type of length that she did in the Jack 8 hand before she folded. And now she's doing it again with Jack 4 here, which is a hand that no one would ever call ever. There are no people that would do this. She also leans forward, blocking her midsection so you can't see, so the vibration theory can live on as we can't really see the midsection of this hand. I also want to talk about this conversation about her not knowing her hand or misreading her hand. And I simply do not believe that is the case, because there's a specific conversation that happens here after she calls and people are asking her what she has. The conversation goes as follows.
Okay. No, I just thought this is a pure bluff catcher.
Someone says, "You have pocket 3?" She says, "No." Someone else says, "You have a 3 in your hand?" She says, "No. I have a pure bluff catcher." We can hear the audio. She says here she does not have a 3 when responding to someone saying, "You have a 3 in your hand." Then after the hand, she doesn't really say that she misread her hand until a little bit later, where that becomes the story of the narrative. And then when she realizes that she looked at her cards before calling, she says it was to check if she had the Jack of clubs. I don't believe this. When people misread their hand and they look back, they go, "Oh shit." They have a moment of reaction. That didn't happen here. People also don't look at their hand and then misread it before making a huge call for like $100,000. Not something that happens. And then also, just to cap the whole thing off, she couldn't explain why she called. And the reason is that if she is cheating, she knows to call. But how do you explain this hand? You can't. I will say I don't want to put too much stock in the exact thing she says here because she said a lot of things, and so I don't think that that's inherently means that she is cheating. But I do think she's lying, given that she said she doesn't have a 3 here when responding to you have a 3 in your hand, and then said later that she thought she had a 3. We've made a fairly strong case in favor of this 3. However, we need to do some objective journalism, and now let's make the case against. Start off with, let's talk about her Hendon mob. We addressed that in the last video before we saw all these small stakes tournaments, now she's playing higher stakes. However, Hendon mob has taken down those past results. So, it's unclear exactly what happened. Apparently, there's a claim there are 2 different people. That's a little weird because it's a 3-word name. I don't know how possible that is, but apparently there are 2 different people. In fact, if someone could let me know if you saw her playing these tournaments before or not, that would really help me understand what is truthful, because of course we don't want to misrepresent things. And if those were someone else, then Robbie has only played poker recently, and those entries should not be used against her. Next, there are also a series of hands that Robbie has played poorly. For starters, we have a hand where she calls down with pocket 5s on a 4-straight board in a multi-way pot. Seems like the kind of hand you wouldn't make if you did in fact know what someone was holding. I will also say that I do think that hands that are evidence of playing bad aren't necessarily evidence that they are not cheating, because if you did have disadvantage versus people, you would want to purposely lose some hands to create confusion. In fact, this is one of the reasons why the Postle thing was so hilarious. The guy didn't bother at all. He just crushed everyone at hundreds of big blinds per 100 because, fuck it, I'm a poker god. The biggest pot I've seen Robbie play where she made a bad decision when she was behind, there was a hand the first game she played where she had aces and called a 15k river bet and probably the 15k. I will say what was a bit weird about this hand, though, is she did not do her normal tank on the river when making a decision. She just snap called it basically when Link bet, or she called very quickly. So, again, bad decision, right, in a big pot. So this has to be in the evidence that she did not cheat, that she's making incorrect calls in some of these large pots. There was another big pot where she had pocket jacks at the end of the most recent stream, and it was a very dicey situation with 3 people, and they were on flush draws that had a lot of equity. And she decides not to raise, to just call a turn bet with a set when obviously you would want to raise if you knew your opponent's on draws. So again, evidence of not making the perfect play. However, when her opponent bet the river, she did a little bit of a tank and then made the correct laydown. Maybe you could go either way on that one, but again, not super sharp accuracy on every street a la Puzzle. After having looked at both these cases, guys, look, it would be great if this was legitimate. And I do hope it is. But I just can't look at this hand, and I can't look at this situation and think that it's on the up and up. I just can't. I've played a lot of poker. I've analyzed Lord knows how many hands. I've seen some shit. This is nowhere near any of that. It's in its own category. And all I can keep thinking about over and over again is this hand I played when I got cheated on PokerStars, and I bluffed with a straight flush draw, a 10-eye straight flush draw, and I got called by Jack High, no pair, just like a gutter, Jack Deuce offsuit, and he min-raised me and called me down. And this is the only hand I can think of that's even close to that, and I confirmed got cheated. I know that's anecdotal. We should stay away from that, but we have to believe our eyes at some point. What if Garrett had 7-6 of clubs and she had 8 deuce? Still fine? Are we going to just throw this all to the wind? And especially when it's done correctly. What are we supposed to believe here, guys? I'm sorry. I know people want to believe. I know everyone wants to think this is a hilarious hand where some person that doesn't know what's going on beat Garrett. And certainly I do believe that that is what happened. But I don't think that this is the kind of hand that's possible legitimately. I really don't. Personal opinion. Also, we know that the I misread my hand is a lie. Because she said right after the hand, I don't have a 3. No, I don't have. She's basically saying I don't have a 3. Someone says, do you have a 3? No. I have a pure bluff catcher. Why is she changing her story? Well, there might be a reason that makes sense there. Maybe she doesn't remember what her story is entirely or exactly what happened. The point I'm making is this is not the kind of hand that happens. And there were a bunch of hands that does that weird tank in spots that don't make sense and then comes to the correct decision. Can't get on board. Sorry, guys. I know a bunch of other people that face fine. I can't get on board with that. I feel fairly strongly that this was cheating. Not 100%. Obviously, there is a chance she's innocent once again. But that's my analysis, and I feel pretty strongly about it.
Your turret has been destroyed. Enemy killing spree. Enemy has been slain. Enemy double kill. Enemy killing spree. Your team has destroyed a turret. 30 seconds until minions spawn. Minions have spawned. Been slain. destroyed. 30 seconds until minions spawn.
Damn the rich! They get their handyman!
It's getting dusty. I don't know where to put it. I actually hide my other play button inside my house. It's kind of top secret that I have 2 YouTube channels and well over 500,000 subscribers. I don't know why I keep it a secret. I think it's just hard to explain to people what you do to make money. Last video I was talking to you about year 1 and how I was saving, how I bought that sailboat, and how I was working for the slumlords. I remembered this awesome experience, lifelong lesson, and I still remember the day. I was working for my first slumlord, and he knew that I didn't belong down there. And we were working in these certain areas with certain names in Fort Lauderdale. Cockroach infestation in every house, every unit. There's cockroaches coming out of the walls. I have a couple stories on my past live streams about those cockroach days. But one day he says, hey, Handy, I need you to go to this address and I need you to install these. You're gonna need this code to get in. Call me if there's any problems. So I get over there and it's a high-rise right on the ocean. And I'm like, well, this is interesting. Never been in one of these. So I go up there, get in the building, through the code, get in the elevator, go all the way up. I get into this, I don't know if it was a penthouse. It looked like a penthouse to me, or what I would envision a penthouse would have been. But it was a crazy, awesome South Florida condo on a corner of the building. So you had 2 faces, one that was south facing and one that was east facing in like a half wraparound balcony. Amazing. I was sent over there to install 2 little cleats for the strings on blinds. You pull your blinds up and you got dangly strings. Well, I installed these 2 little cleats. That's it. 2 cleats. It just didn't make sense to me. I had been in production, construction, and remodeling for a long time, but not home repairs, condo repairs for very wealthy people. Anyways, we had a conversation. I still remember it. He said, only work for rich people. That's it. You say that today, and a lot of people get triggered. And I've kind of kept that in the back of my head when I'm trying to build my customer base. I'm looking for the people who, one, they need me and they can afford me. So keep that in mind. When you're building your network, don't go to the trailer parks, don't go to the retirement communities. Stay with the upper middle class, younger, college-educated people. It's weird talking about this because so many people get triggered just by those words. Like, I don't know, we don't want to go down that road. Now, if you've been around this channel any length of time, you know that I don't work for the elderly. It's just not good for business. They're not my target customers. That's not to say that you can't make money in those communities, but they are on a fixed income. They just don't have the resource to pay for your true value. I almost got in with the retirement community many years ago, and here's how it goes. They're all ranches. They're all connected, like 6-unit buildings, and they all came with these teeny tiny crappy decks on the back, like a little square. Somehow, one of the guys got my name, and he said, hey, I want you to come over and take a look at tearing this deck off and put me on something proper. It was a retirement community. They weren't like elderly, but it was like an over 65 condo community. Here are some red flags that kind of made me walk away from that job. Lots of work with the homeowners association. Didn't really like that. 2, needed to get permits for every deck. This was the municipality where I worked as a construction superintendent building homes. I know that building department and that permitting process inside and out, and it's not fun. It was the strictest in the entire metro area. The planning procedures, the planning approval, it was a lengthy period of time. I declined. I said, you know what? I don't think this project's right for me, even though it would have spread. I would have done one after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other. Because all these older people wanted new decks. But I didn't do it. I probably could have made some money. It probably would have led to referrals. That was just a short example on finding your target customers that can afford you, that need you, that want to pay you stripper money. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but you know what? I've made this channel so I didn't have to worry about stepping on toes and being super PC. Well, it's turned into, you know, this, 100,000 subscribers, you know, got sponsors beating down the door to get into this channel. I'm trying to be very picky on who I let sponsor this channel, but keep that in mind when you're out there working, when you're out there handing out flyers. Go past the trailer park, go over to the big houses with the white picket fences, and upper middle class, 40 years old, probably had moved up several levels in their career, making some good money, and they want to buy some free time. Another thing that I get on my other channel is,
Who would pay this man so much money to do such simple tasks?
people who want more time. That's it. I think that's the biggest exchange for money, is you're buying free time. You're buying time to do what you want. All right, everybody. Got a little bit different look for you. A little different handyman, a little different scenery. We're no longer in the workshop. We're in Hawaii. I've been here all month. Been editing YouTube videos, a lot of business videos. Thought I would add to the video that I'm currently editing. I get a lot of comments, a lot of questions about who the heck pays for this type of work? Who the heck in their right mind would not just go to YouTube and learn how to fix their own garbage disposal? Or who would not just paint that wall themselves? And I happen to be in a high concentration of people who don't do anything themselves. They pay for everything, from painting their toenails to making the food, taking their own picture. Being out here amongst them has made it real easy to tell you some characteristics that they share and things that they pay for that you and I most likely wouldn't normally pay for. Things are changing for me. I'm bleeding money left and right like you wouldn't believe. And that brings me to my first example. So last week, my family and I were on a different island. We're in Hawaii, and we wanted family photos taken. And we hired a photographer for 30 minutes. We met at a public beach, parked in public beach parking, went out to the beach, and the photographer took our picture a couple times, you know. Oh, stand over here, stand over there. Okay, now now let's just get you two here, that sort of thing. But it was 30 minutes. Put down in the comments, what do you think I had to pay for those pictures? I haven't seen them yet, don't know if they're good yet, but the cost of that photographer for 30 minutes, $50. And then I tipped her another $50. $50 for 30 minutes. But it wasn't 30 minutes. That person worked for 25 years to gain the reputation that was worth $450 for 30 minutes. Sure, I could go to YouTube, I could figure out how to take my own picture, could have done a lot of things to get pictures that didn't cost $. I want to talk more about the people who pay for everything. They're here. Right now, to stay in this room with this view, it's going to cost you $1,300 a night. This is only a 4-star resort. It gets even better and more expensive once you go to a 5-star resort. Those people, don't know much about them. I only know 4-star people, but they pay. They pay $22 for a grilled cheese sandwich off the kids menu for a 3-year-old. I know, it's kind of crazy. 2 pieces of bread and some cheese for $22. That's your options. That's another thing I want to focus on, is it's the only option for people to get a 4-star grilled cheese sandwich. What you can do is offer a service that is not a handyman, the bum off the street. The guy at the beginning of this video, me, with the giant, crazy homeless man beard, don't look like that. Do not look like that if you are out there trying to grow your business, grow a customer base of wealthy people that trust you and refer you. Don't look like that. This is what I looked like when I started, and it worked. Within 1 year, I had more work than I could handle. I spoke to them on a different level, I appeared different, I communicated different, and that's the reason I got into this industry, is because I knew what was out there, and it wasn't good. There's no high level service. If you guys knew how many comments I get from homeowners on my main YouTube channel saying, how do you even get someone to show up? How do I get someone to call me back? How do I get someone that doesn't look like they're gonna kill me or rob me? When you show up and you are on the same or higher level than they are in professionalism and appearance, you'll get that money. But you gotta find the people that have that money and that want that service. The work that we do is very simple. Anybody can do it. Even the homeowners can do it. They don't want to do it. There's a lot of people who don't want to do it. Any monkey can install a garbage disposal or press the reset button. Got a story for you. Customer calls me up, frantic. My wife left the garbage disposal running. We don't know how long it's been running, but it's burnt up. Can you please come install a new garbage disposal? And I said, you know, I can't get there for another month. I'm in Hawaii, living it up. And he says, oh man, I don't know what we're gonna do without a garbage disposal. So I said, listen, here's what you're gonna do. Turn the switch off, okay? Got the switch off? Switch off, turn the water on. We need to cool the garbage disposal down. Run cold water on it for 10 minutes. And then I want you to push the reset button on the bottom. Half hour later, I get a text message. I can't believe it. It worked. How do you know how to do all this stuff? They were gonna pay me $400 to replace that high-end garbage disposal. Very fancy garbage disposal. So fancy that you couldn't even hear it running when you turn it on. That's how things overheated in the first place, is they didn't know it was on. They walked away because they didn't hear it. Anybody can do this stuff. But when you provide a 5-star service, they will pay you for a 5-star service. That's what I would work on. Every customer you get is a chance to earn 10, 20, 100 more customers. Like-minded customers. Customers that can afford you. That's why I always recommend word-of-mouth advertising over anything else. There's such a high demand, and there's going to be more of a demand in more areas. Because of the pandemic, people who make a lot of money, people in the tech industry, people who are afraid of their own shadows, are leaving cities and they're going out to more affordable places to live, more of a blue-collar area, and they are coming with high expectations for their living accommodations. They're going to want nice houses. They're going to want renovation. So you have a horde, a massive wave of people leaving California, leaving Portland, leaving Seattle, and they're going to places like Kansas and Arkansas and Buffalo, New York. Probably not Buffalo, New York. That is freaking hellhole. I don't suggest anybody goes to Buffalo. But they're going out there and they're finding nice little places in the Midwest. They just sold their 1-bedroom closet for $2.5 million, and they're coming to your town and they're gonna buy and build an estate. Probably what I should do, but can't convince the wife yet. Get ready, get out there, practice. I remember practicing so many times in my truck. I've got this many questions that I've already asked them either through text message or email. Want to come off super professional, has to do with how I can communicate the confidence to the customer. Got a little bird hopping up here. Hey, shoot. So I hope that helps some of you that say, people around here only pay $12 an hour. People around here would never pay that. They exist, trust me, they exist. You might not live in an area with a high concentration of them. There might not be very many. Maybe this isn't the industry. Maybe this isn't the type of business to start up there. Is there enough people to support your financial goals? You might have to move. You might go into different business. You might want to try a different line of work. I gotta get back to the beach. Goodbye.
The following is a conversation with Michael Levin, one of the most fascinating and brilliant biologists I've ever talked to. He and his lab at Tufts University works on novel ways to understand and control complex pattern formation in biological systems. Andre Karpathy, a world-class AI researcher, is the person who first introduced me to Michael Levin's work. I bring this up because these two people make me realize that biology has a lot to teach us about AI, and AI might have a lot to teach us about biology. This is the Lex Friedman podcast. To support it, please check out our sponsors in the description. And now, dear friends, here's Michael Levin. Embryogenesis is the process of building the human body from a single cell. I think it's one of the most incredible things that exists on Earth, from a single embryo. So how does this process work?
Yeah, it is. It is an incredible process. I think it's maybe the most magical process there is, and I think one of the most fundamentally interesting things about it is that it shows that each of us takes the journey from so-called just physics to mind, right? Because we all start life as a single quiescent, unfertilized oocyte, and it's basically a bag of chemicals. And you look at that and you say, okay, this is chemistry and physics. And then 9 months and some years later, you have an organism with high-level cognition and preferences and an inner life and so on. And what embryogenesis tells us is that that transformation from physics to mind is gradual. It's smooth. There is no special place where a lightning bolt says, boom, now you've gone from physics to true cognition. That doesn't happen. And so we can see in this process that the whole mystery, the biggest mystery of the universe, basically, how you get mind from matter.
From just physics, in quotes.
Yeah.
So where's the magic into the thing? How do we get from information coded in DNA and make physical reality out of that information?
So one of the things that I think is really important if we're going to bring in DNA into this picture is to think about the fact that what DNA encodes is the hardware of life. DNA contains the instructions for the kind of micro level hardware that every cell gets to play with. So all the proteins, all the signaling factors, the ion channels, all the cool little pieces of hardware that cells have, that's what's in the DNA. The rest of it is in so-called generic laws. And these are laws of mathematics. These are laws of computation. These are laws of physics, of all kinds of interesting things that are not directly in the DNA. And that process, I think the reason I always put just physics in quotes is because I don't think there is such a thing as just physics. I think that thinking about these things in binary categories, like this is physics, this is true cognition, this is as if, it's only faking, these kinds of things, I think that's what gets us in trouble. I think that we really have to understand that it's a continuum, and we have to work up the scaling, the laws of scaling, and we can certainly talk about that. There's a lot of really interesting thoughts to be had there.
So the physics is deeply integrated with the information. So the DNA doesn't exist on its own. The DNA is integrated as, in some sense, in response to the laws of physics at every scale, the laws of the environment it exists in.
Yeah, the environment and also the laws of the universe. I mean, the thing about the DNA is that it's once evolution discovers a certain kind of machine, that if the physical implementation is appropriate, it's sort of and this is hard to talk about because we don't have a good vocabulary for this yet, but it's a very kind of a Platonic notion that if the machine is there, it pulls down interesting things that you do not have to evolve from scratch because the laws of physics give it to you for free. So just as a really stupid example, if you're trying to evolve a particular triangle, you can evolve the first angle and you evolve the second angle, but you don't need to evolve the third. You know what it is already. Now, why do you know? That's a gift for free from geometry in a particular space. You know what that angle has to be. And if you evolve an ion channel, ion channels are basically transistors, right? They're voltage gated current conductances. If you evolve that ion channel, you immediately get to use things like truth tables. You get logic functions. You don't have to evolve the logic function. You don't have to evolve a truth table. It doesn't have to be in the DNA. You get it for free, right? And the fact that if you have NAND gates, you can build anything you want. You get that for free. All you have to evolve is that first step, that first little machine that enables you to couple to those laws. And there's laws of adhesion and many other things. And this is all that interplay between the hardware that's set up by the genetics and the software that's right. The physiological software that basically does all the computation and the cognition and everything else is a real interplay between the information in the DNA and the laws of physics, of computation, and so on.
So is it fair to say, just like this idea that the laws of mathematics are discovered, they're latent within the fabric of the universe, in that same way the laws of biology are kind of discovered?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely, and it's probably not a popular view, but I think that's right on the money. Yeah.
Well, I think that's a really deep idea. Then embryogenesis is the process of revealing, of embodying, of manifesting these laws. You're not building the laws.
Yeah.
You're just creating the capacity to reveal.
Yes. I think, again, not the standard view of molecular biology by any means, but I think that's right on the money. I'll give you a simple example. Some of our latest work with these xenobots, right? So what we've done is to take some skin cells off of an early frog embryo and basically ask about their plasticity. If we give you a chance to sort of reboot your multicellularity in a different context, what would you do? Because what you might assume by the thing about embryogenesis is that it's super reliable, right? It's very robust. And that really obscures some of its most interesting features. We get used to it. We get used to the fact that acorns make oak trees and frog eggs make frogs. And we say, well, what else is it going to make? That's what it makes. That's a standard story. But the reality is, and so you look at these skin cells and you say, well, what do they know how to do? Well, they know how to be a passive, boring, two-dimensional outer layer, keeping the bacteria from getting into the embryo. That's what they know how to do. Well, it turns out that if you take these skin cells and you remove the rest of the embryo, so you remove all of the rest of the cells, and you say, well, you're by yourself now. What do you want to do? So what they do is they form this little this little creature that runs around the dish. They have all kinds of incredible capacities. They navigate through mazes. They have various behaviors that they do both independently and together. They have they implement von Neumann's dream of self-replication, because if you sprinkle a bunch of loose cells into the dish, what they do is they run around, they collect those cells into little piles. They sort of mush them together until those little piles become the next generation of xenobots. So you've got this machine that builds copies of itself from loose material in its environment. None of this are things that you would have expected from the frog genome. In fact, they're wild type. The genome is wild type. There's nothing wrong with their genetics. Nothing has been added, no nanomaterials, no genomic editing, nothing. And so what we have done there is engineer by subtraction. What you've done is you removed the other cells that normally basically bully these cells into being skin cells. And you find out that what they really want to do is to be this, their default behavior is to be a xenobot. But in vivo, in the embryo, they get told to be skinned by these other cell types. And so now here comes this really interesting question that you just posed. When you ask where does the form of the tadpole and the frog come from, the standard answer is, well, it's selection. So over millions of years, right, it's been shaped to produce the specific body that's fit for froggy environments. Where does the shape of the xenobot come from? There's never been any xenobots. There's never been selection to be a good xenobot. These cells find themselves in the new environment. In 48 hours, they figure out how to be an entirely different proto-organism with new capacities like kinematic self-replication. That's not how frogs or tadpoles replicate. We've made it impossible for them to replicate their normal way. Within a couple of days, these guys find a new way of doing it that's not done anywhere else in the biosphere.
Well, actually, let's step back and define what are xenobots.
So a xenobot is a self-assembling little proto-organism. It's also a biological robot. Those things are not distinct. It's a member of both classes.
How much is it biology? How much is it robot?
At this point, most of it is biology, because what we're doing is we're discovering natural behaviors of the cells and also of the cell collectives. Now, one of the really important parts of this was that we're working together with Josh Bongard's group at University of Vermont. They're computer scientists, do AI, and they've basically been able to use a simulated evolution approach to ask, how can we manipulate these cells, give them signals, not rewire their DNA, so not hardware, but experience signals. So can we remove some cells? Can we add some cells? Can we poke them in different ways to get them to do other things? So in the future, there's going to be, we're now, and this is future unpublished work, but we're doing all sorts of interesting ways to reprogram them to new behaviors. But before you can start to reprogram these things, you have to understand what their innate capacities are.
Okay, so that means programming. You're engineering them in the future, and in some sense, the definition of a robot is something you in part engineer, and versus evolve. I mean, it's such a fuzzy definition anyway. In some sense, many of the organisms within our body are kinds of robots.
Yes.
And I think robots is a weird line, because we tend to see robots as the other. I think there will be a time in the future when there's going to be something akin to the civil rights movement for robots, but we'll talk about that later, perhaps.
Sure.
Anyway, so can we just linger on it? How do you build a xenobot? What are we talking about here? From whence does it start, and how does it become the glorious xenobot?
Yeah. So just to take one step back, one of the things that a lot of people get stuck on is they say, well, engineering requires new DNA circuits, or it requires new nanomaterials. What the thing is, we are now moving from old school engineering, which used passive materials, right? The things that, wood, metal, things like this, that basically the only thing you could depend on is that they were going to keep their shape. That's it. They don't do anything else. It's on you as an engineer to make them do everything they're going to do. And then there were active materials and now computational materials. This is a whole new era. These are agential materials. This is you're now collaborating with your substrate, because your material has an agenda. These cells have, billions of years of evolution. They have goals. They have preferences. They're not just going to sit where you put them.
That's hilarious that you have to talk your material into keeping its shape.
That is exactly right. That is exactly right. That is
Stay
exactly
there.
Right.
It's like getting a bunch of cats or something and trying to organize a shape out of them.
It's funny, we're on the same page here because in a paper, this is currently just been accepted in Nature Bioengineering. One of the figures I have is building a tower out of Legos versus dogs, right?
Yeah.
So think about the difference, right? If you build out of Legos, you have full control over where it's going to go, but if somebody knocks it over, it's game over. With the dogs, you cannot just come and stack them. They're not going to stay that way. But the good news is that if you train them, then somebody knocks it over, they'll get right back up. So it's all right. So as an engineer, what you really want to know is what can I depend on this thing to do, right? That's really, a lot of people have definitions of robots as far as what they're made of or how they got here, design versus evolve, whatever. I don't think any of that is useful. I think as an engineer, what you want to know is how much can I depend on this thing to do when I'm not around to micromanage it? What level of dependency can I give this thing? How much agency does it have? Which then tells you what techniques do you use. So do you use micromanagement, like you put everything where it goes? Do you train it? Do you give it signals? Do you try to convince it to do things, right? How much, how intelligent is your substrate? And so now we're moving into this area where you're working with agential materials. That's a collaboration. That's not old style.
What's the word you're using? Agential?
Agential. Yeah.
What's that mean?
Agency. It comes from the word agency. So basically the material has agency, meaning that it has some level of, obviously not human level, but some level of preferences, goals, memories, ability to remember things, to compute into the future, meaning anticipate. When you're working with cells, they have all of that to various degrees.
Is that empowering or limiting, having material that has a mind of its own?
I think it's both, right? So it raises difficulties because it means that if you're using the old mindset, which is a linear kind of extrapolation of what's going to happen, you're going to be surprised and shocked all the time because biology does not do.
you.